Hello and welcome. My name is Jasmine Keys, and you are listening to Why, How, Impact, the series that breaks down what it takes to be a leader and why on earth they do it. Today, we're featuring Vero Mura, who has become a trailblazer in March as the Global Brand Vice President for Jim Beam at Beam Suntory. Vero has guided numerous iconic brands on their journeys, including Dove, Vaseline, Avon, and Estee Lauder. Throughout the next 15 minutes, we'll delve into what she's learned from these brands and how she's going to go about finding her next new challenge. Thank you for joining us, Vero.
Thank you for having me.
What I didn't realize when I put together this series is that Why, How, Impact is a great line of questioning for working out what you really want in your next role. So, in today's episode, we're going to focus on identifying your passions, experience, and leadership style, and why they should be the compass when considering your next challenge. As is tradition here, we always begin with the why. So, Vero, talk us through how you got to where you are today. Leadership is no easy feat. So, was it always something you wanted to pursue?
Of course, Jasmine, I did not always know I was going to be a leader. I guess as I reflect on where I got where I am today, there are a few things that I can sort of point to that sort of shaped my career, why I chose marketing and who I am as a leader. So, a couple of things. If I really start to going back to what I really like doing, even as I was younger, etc., I've always been a very creative person. I've always loved arts, design, photography. I paint, typography, all of these sort of visual elements. And as part of my education as well, I actually studied economics and sociology, which I found to be fascinating. Understanding people's behaviors, attitudes, beliefs. And when you think about that, this is at the heart of what marketing is really about, understanding what makes people tick. So going back to this love of arts and sort of understanding people, that's sort of the first foundation why I was attracted to marketing. And then I was fortunate enough to start my career in amazing companies that had great, great brands that are known worldwide. And you mentioned some of them in your intro. And this
Yeah.
brand would touch people's life. And these companies have taught me how to find the soul of a brand and connect it to what is really important to people. Because I ultimately believe brands are at the heart of how businesses create value. And then the last piece of the puzzle, I suppose, is I actually come from a very tiny village in the northeast of France, but I lived, studied, and worked in 5 different countries across 2 continents,
Wow.
moving to countries where I barely spoke the language or not at all sometimes. And I guess that really attracted me, sort of this intellectual curiosity to go and learn about things that were beyond your little world or universe. Because when you move abroad, when you try new things, there's this great sense of possibilities. You learn about different cultures, speak different languages, and at the same time, you cultivate this outsider's perspective, which can be really quite powerful as a leader and in your professional career, because I believe looking at things differently and in new ways helps you grow as a person and as a leader. So when I reflect as to my why, and as you put it in your intro as well, this is something I've been especially sort of thinking about as I think about what's important for me in my next challenge. I would say my why is about inspiring creativity to drive change and build better things or businesses.
So many things there are just jumping out at me, Vero. Firstly, I love the idea of finding the soul of a brand and digging into where it came from, how it got there, and then that soul being the piece behind the values of a brand and the purpose of the brand. Absolutely love that. And secondly, you and I seem to have a lot in common. I also came from a very, very small town in Australia. I studied in the States for a little bit, and then I moved over to London about 7 years ago now. So definitely, I see that and I hear that, and I see that in expats all over the world. It's this this want and desire, and it's almost addictive, that getting out of your comfort zone, isn't it?
Yeah, especially, yeah, absolutely. You've said it right. And I think, back to your point, taking the leap out of your comfort zone, I think that really influenced the roles I decided to take on. And it's giving me direction today in pursuing my next role. Because when you think about it, I did this over and over again throughout my career, stepping outside of my comfort zone, new countries, different industries, etc. And in the process, I think you learn valuable lessons about curiosity, adaptability, and constant learning as well. And I guess that's what motivates me. Um, Choosing the roles where I can get that, not only for myself, but I can also make sure I provide that for my team. So when I think about that, it's about, finding an organization that loves and cherishes brands with interesting brands that touch people's souls, as you said, and have an impact on culture.
Yeah.
It's an exciting environment where diversity lives and global culture is embraced, and therefore, an environment which encourages and rewards risk taking, where creativity is everywhere, where you are encouraged to bring fresh thinking, and where bravery is also encouraged and supported. So that's really, the sort of compass as I was, as I evolved as a leader in choosing the different roles, and also the type of things I'm looking at for the next opportunity.
Yeah, fantastic. I wonder, this is something a friend said to me, and a concept that she kind of came up with as she was looking for a new role. So she spoke about the quality of daily interactions. And so that means, what sort of clients are you working with? What sort of people are they? Or what sort of people are the people in the executive team, or the people in your team in the organization? Does that come into your decision making?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to the sort of like environment I was trying to sort of like dimensionalize just a minute
Yes.
ago. I guess if I had to sum it up, is this idea of intellectual curiosity, this idea of, valuing different and fresh perspective,
Mm.
sometimes even valuing an outsider's perspective, and sort of fostering an environment where team can feel empowered to sort of having a point of view and sort of flourish in that environment.
Incredible. That's a really nice segue into moving on to the how. So we've kind of uncovered the motivation behind your journey, right? Let's look at the strategies, methods, the approaches that you've employed to achieve results in all the organizations and brands that you've been part of so far. So, in a few words, simply, how are you talking about your leadership style?
I guess the the most important thing for me, like authenticity, is really, really important for me.
Mm.
As is providing psychological safety for my team. So, and I think both go hand in hand, actually. So I try to nurture my team and get them to be the best version of themselves, knowing I'll always have their backs, and being genuine in your interaction, it is I found a really important way to gain people's trust and sort of like enable that to happen. I also try to be a sturdy leader. And what I mean by that is that doesn't mean you have to have all the answer, but at the end of the day, when things get tough, it's what makes people feel safe safe and enables them to flourish and develop, and ultimately then inspire them to be creative.
I love that sturdy leader because I think what sometimes leaders can lack is although they can be empathetic, caring, authentic, if you don't have a leader that has the confidence to stand up for you within the organization or with clients when the time comes, that's not a leader that's covering all the bases.
Yeah, and I would say this is important for your internal team, but also your external team, the agencies you're working on. Like when you can count on somebody because this person is authentic to who you are and has the courage of their convictions and will fight for what they believe is the right thing to do.
There's nothing worse than hearing one thing and then as soon as you're in a meeting, that conversation turning very quickly to the more senior person in the room's opinion.
Yeah.
um, so Vera, we kind of talked about how that leadership has evolved as you've been in different roles. Is there any specific way that you've refined it? Like, is there a moment where you learnt something and that changed the way that you led, or has it been very, gradual?
I think it's been sort of done in an organic way. First of all, I always try to lead others the way I want to lead, according to like my moral compass and values. But I guess some of the things that might have shaped my leadership style, sorry, is, as I worked really hard, followed my passions for learning new things, moved abroad, joined different companies. I've always been open to new opportunities and curious. And I think my leadership style was influenced by these different personal experiences I had during that time. It taught me to be willing to learn along the way, to be open-minded, and making changes as needed, as well as resilience and grit. Um, the one thing that I would say is constant in my leadership style, because this is just who I am as a person, I guess, is this need for authenticity, as I talked about, as well as maintaining just a healthy dose of dissatisfaction, because I believe that pushes you to stretch yourself.
What do you mean? As in, like, that growth mindset?
Yeah, I mean, just like not settling for good enough, you know,
Yeah.
because that sort of like gives you a North Star. And, it goes hand in hand with the need for changing and transforming things and making things better, I suppose. If you're just a tiny bit dissatisfied with the status quo, it just puts it in a different light.
But it brings us quite well onto the next piece, which is around the scope of leadership and how you balance the soft skills and the hard skills. So obviously, as a marketing leader, as a brand leader, there are a lot of technical skills that you can be mastering. A lot of research goes into it all, a lot of data goes into it all. But then, of course, as a leader, the soft skills that we've talked about already are so important. What has come up a lot on the Trailblazers series so far is the idea of a generalist. And at this stage, the three leaders that I've talked to so far have all been that generalist sort of leader. I wonder if you fall into that category as well, or if you're more of an expert in brand.
That's a good question. Because of the nature of brand building, you sort of have to know a little bit about a lot of things. So, in a way, to be an expert in brands, you have to be a good generalist, I find, um, in the sense that you obviously have to have all of the business and functional experiences, as well as the industry or category knowledge required to operate at the highest level in your role. And as a senior marketing leader, this spans the gamut from insights and data analysis, the ability to formulate concepts and strategy, knowing how to bring new products to market, developing communication platform, financial and commercial acumen, right? So there's a lot of different things. You can't be an expert in all of that. And you do not need to have all of the answers yourselves, because ultimately there will always be people that are way smarter than you that you can rely on, hopefully, to sort of like bring it all together, to sort of like give you the right answers. But for me, to be like an effective leader in marketing, you need to be able to ask the right questions and to identify and set a clear directions for people. So this is where sort of like you rely on obviously your hard skills and your experience. But as you grow and evolve as a leader, I think there are two things that are critical. And I would say the first one for me, and perhaps the most important one, is really this ability to bring people with you and unite them under a shared vision and belief. And obviously, to articulate a vision and belief, you need to have done all of the legwork that I just talked about, right? And this is super important, not only for your immediate team, but at a wider organizational level as well, to get the buy-in and the traction you need. And then once you've had this shared vision and belief, once this is very clear, you need to be able as a leader to cut through to what is really important to make it happen and to make clear decisions, even if that may involve tough choices as you pursue this vision, and communicate that very clearly. So these are to me like the two, if you like, softer skills that become like more critical and that you need to balance as you move forward as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're saying that, what's coming back to me is something that Deb Cupp, President Americas for Microsoft, said, and she talked about building her network. So when she started at Microsoft, she went in there, and within a week, she was messaging anyone's name that came up, messaging them and saying, "Hey, I'm new here. Can I talk to you about your role?" And by doing that, she works out who within the organization knows what they're doing. They're the experts in X space. By making those connections across the organization, communicating that belief and that vision is so much easier because you have people who are already on your side, who you're able to start communicating that vision with already, who know and trust you, which is especially difficult in a large organizational brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's critical as a new leader, joining a business, really investing the time to getting to know people and to sort of like building your network. And I've made the mistake before of not spending enough time doing it. But it is critical because at the end of the day, you are in charge as a leader of driving change, right? You're not
Yes.
brought into an organization to just leave things as they are. And to drive change, it does involve a certain level of discomfort, and therefore you're going to need to have advocates and people that are as invested as you are in what you're trying to change. So really investing the time to build your network, getting to know people, and sharing your vision and bringing people into the vision is really, really important.
Yes, advocates. That is exactly it. Building that network of advocates. I want to move on to discussing kind of the tangible outcomes of your efforts. So tell me first, you've been across a lot of amazing brands, Vero. I am very jealous, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are as well. What are you most proud of so far?
It's hard to say. Well, there are lots of things, hopefully, I'm proud of in my career. I tick the box on a number of things. I should hope. I've turned around brands. I've launched products and brands in complete new categories, like I did with Dove and Dove Men. I developed successful comms along the way on different brands. I'm really proud of what I achieved with my team on my last job, which is when I was the head of Jim Beam and really sort of like reinventing this global icon and positioning it and driving relevance and, looking at what Jim Beam stands for, what it is about and sort of redefining that and how it shows up to the world, from packaging all the way to the type of partnership and sort of like messaging we're putting out there. But when I really think about it and when it all comes down to it, my proudest achievements always come back to people. Because to me, the most important thing about being a leader is about how much of that difference you're able to make and what you provide on a deeper emotional level. And that relates back also to providing this psychological safety I was talking to you earlier about.
Yes.
So people feel truly empowered and can bring their authentic and best selves at work. So what do I want to be remembered for? Really is I want to be remembered for the positive impact I had on the teams and the brands I've been fortunate to build and lead. How much stronger they are after my time than before it. And ultimately, in very simple terms, how I made people feel as part of that.
There you go. That is why you are in such high demand. So, anyone looking for a new boss, maybe join the queue. Vero, thank you so much for your time and candor today on why, how, impact. It is refreshing to hear such an honest perspective on the realities of executive recruitment. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Why How Impact is a weekly conversation with our 2024 Trailblazers. So make sure you subscribe and tune in to next week as we continue to explore what it takes to be a leader and the powerful why behind it all. Until then, be kind to yourself and others, and don't forget to follow Vero. She's brilliant. I'm Jasmine Keys, and this is Why How Impact. We'll see you next time.